Only maturity can fix and properly address immaturity. That is an argument that we can explore a little bit. First of all, what does that mean? We say that quite often are encountered reactions that can be deemed immature. What does it mean to have an immature reaction? It means a reaction, an action, a feeling that flows not from an individuality, a human personality, such as is properly worked out, such as is approaching or at least trending in the direction of the consummation of human potentialities, but such as flows from misconceptions about oneself and about others, from alienation from other people, from one's notion of the world and such, from selfishness, from self centeredness, all that kind of stuff. So, for example, let's say that um, I encounter an instance of road rage. Why is that immature? Why isn't that perfectly sensible? Well, let's say that in question, what happened was that I veered in front of somebody a little bit, perhaps unintentionally, and the person just exploded. Now, if that person was interviewed and was asked, "Have you ever made mistakes while driving?" If they're honest, they're going to say yes in all likelihood. And if somehow they haven't in that sphere, they've made mistakes in other spheres. And then we can ask them, would you appreciate if somebody exploded on you if you made a little mistake like that? And if they were honest, they would say no. Right? But then they would say, but when I make mistakes, it's for good reasons. Right? It's because the other driver really did something bad, or excuse me, it's because I have some kind of purpose. I'm late somewhere, I'm speeding, something like this. When other people make mistakes, that's on them. They're just stupid. They're just bad. They're just evil. So is this true? No, it's not true. It's that simple. It's not true. And everybody does something in this sense, at least in the sense the person means, for a cause or for a reason. That other person also had his or her reason. Maybe he or she was late. Maybe he or she was distracted. Maybe he or she is just not a very good driver. Maybe he or she has a psychological problem and feels power by dominating the roads. But the same thinking that would justify my own errors would justify their errors. So we see, that's just to get the point. That's why it's immature, because it's stemming from not truth, from falsity, from misconceptions. But anyhow, when we encounter such instances of immaturity, the obvious and evident and natural reaction is commensurate, meaning equal immaturity. So let's say, for example, somebody calls me out in a way that I feel is unjust. It is unfair. I may, in the moment, comply. Somebody tells me, an authority figure, maybe I'm a student at school, tells me to go in the corner. I'm a kindergartner, tells me to sit in the corner, time out, something this. In the moment, I may comply. Because of, let's say, social pressure. I don't want to say no. I would feel uncomfortable. I'm not that kind of disagreeable that I would start an argument in the moment. But then shortly after, the resentment begins to bubble up. Right, the desire for revenge, the desire to get the person back. So we see that here, the other person's immaturity naturally and normally is met by an equal amount or the same kind of immaturity by the way of my own self. And very good chance also that in the moment also, again, depending on my disagreeableness and my willingness to um, go against somebody else, that even in the moment, I'm going to react in an immature way. You yell at me, I yell at you, or at least I begin to pout, or inside I begin to again feel bad, and this and that. So that's kind of the norm. That's universal. That immaturity is met with immaturity. Anger is met with anger. Narcissism is met with narcissism. Pride is met with pride. Hatred is met with hatred. You hate me, I hate you. You insult me, I insult you. You physically try to harm me, I physically try to harm you. That actually could be one of those asterisks where maybe it's appropriate to defend oneself. Well, let's say that in question is not physical safety. It's emotional matters. Right, so that again is universal, but we can ask, has that ever or can that ever correct anything? Can that improve myself or the other person? To gain clarity on a potential answer there, we can ask whether children can raise children. Could a child who him or herself is a kindergartner be put in charge of a kindergarten class and at the end of that year have that kindergarten class be more mature and more developed than they were initially? Just to get the immediate thoughts out of the way, that could say yes if that child is exceptional for their age and that's the only option. But let's say the child is not exceptional for their age, they're exactly at the same level as the other kindergartners and is simply arbitrarily assigned to be in charge of them. We say that they can grow together, they can kind of mature unwittingly from collisions with each other. You took my blocks and then I smacked you and you learn your lesson. Something this, but not in any kind of witting, meaning intentional, real way. In order for children to mature, they have to model mature behavior from adults, generally speaking. I have to see an example of what maturity is like. I'm a toddler and I'm screaming. Somebody begins to scream at me. That's not going to help me to learn, right? I have an issue with anger, and then every time I'm angry at somebody, somebody meets me with the same anger back. It's not going to correct my anger. Uh, I have an issue with excess egoism. Somebody meets me with the same degree of egoism. It will not correct me. I have some kind of misconception, right, such as implicates my sanity. Somebody with that same misconception will not improve my sanity. So, for example, I say that I'm Julius Caesar or I'm Joan of Arc. Right? If somebody else says they're Julius Caesar to me or Joan of Arc, they're not going to correct me, will they? They might convince me of another insanity that they actually are, but it's still the same insanity. So we see that only sanity can help insanity. Only love can help hate. And only goodness can help evil. Evil does not correct evil. Insanity does not correct insanity. We get the point. Hatred does not correct hatred. Two families, for example, or two nations can beef for eternity. I think, oh, if I just hate this person enough or this group enough, eventually they're going to wake up and see that they're worth hating and they're going to join my side. No, they won't. They're going to continue to hate me, and I'm going to continue to hate them at this pace, at this rate, right, as the situation is presently framed, and that'll be that. And to be honest, we frequently are fine with that because it can be very enjoyable to hate, and it can be very enjoyable to respond to anger, to respond to other people's unreasonableness with our own unreasonableness, to respond to other people's road rage with our own road rage. It can be fun. We have to be honest. But as fun as it may be, it is ultimately destructive and harmful and is not conducive to our own true good, even if we don't see that at the moment. Our own true good is predicated on maturity. I have to be moving in the direction of what I can be as a human being if I ever want to have a good life and be anything along the lines of happy. So, to the present point, then, what I can begin to do is to respond to any such instances of immaturity, be they concern, some of the aforementioned ones, hatred, rage, anger, unreasonableness, unfair criticism, injustice, with the very opposite of that which I have encountered. Respond to injustice with justice. Respond to hate with love. Respond to rage with calm. Respond to unreasonableness with reasonableness. That is the only hope for the correction of the other person, and that is the only thing that is conducive to my own maturity. So, for example, let's say that somebody is raging at me on the road. Rage in response will not help either of us. As pleasant as it might be and as satisfying as it might be, especially if I think I can one up the other person. Calmness, however, can help us. Right, let's say that somebody makes an unreasonable request of me, and which is, excuse me, clearly unfair. Clearly the person is just trying to flex on me, is trying to one up me again, is trying to demonstrate their superiority. concerning me illicitly. If I do the same, not going to help us. But if I turn the other cheek, so to say, and I cooperate per what is reasonable, then that can help. Again, with the asterisk that if physical safety is involved, right, then it's a different story. Nobody's saying that we have to allow ourselves to be beat up or take these things to the extreme. It's again when emotional and mental things are in question. So somebody hates us, right? The normal reaction, hate them right back. You hate me, I hate you. Here, it would be offered we should instead return the hatred with love, or at least pretend. Right? It's not easy to do. We can't just do it, but at least act as if that was so. You hate me. I try to understand why. For example, you're projecting on me something like this, and then I kind of, with that understanding, I try to show a little love to you. So that's basically the idea. Again, to summarize, we do encounter a whole bunch of maturity concerning ourselves and concerning others. Immaturity, or we say maturity, immaturity perpetuates immaturity. Immaturity met with immaturity conduces only to immaturity. Hatred met with hatred leads to hatred. Ignorance met with ignorance leads to ignorance. Anger met with anger leads to anger. Egoism met with egoism leads to egoism. Pride met with pride leads to pride, and so forth and so on. Unreasonableness with unreasonableness, we get the idea. So, at the end of the day, as pleasant as all of that might be and as fun as it can be, we have to ultimately man or woman up and ourselves choose to be mature, or at least pretend to be so. A good guide here is assuming, again, in question is not physical safety. Do the very opposite of what the other person is doing. The person is hating on us, love on them. The person is raging at us, calm on them, if that's a phrase. The person is being supremely unreasonable, do our very best to be reasonable. And try to do so without smirking, right? Or without saying, look at how superior I am. Do so because we have a little bit of sympathy for the immaturity of others, right? If I'm a teacher tasked with a classroom full of toddlers, I should demonstrate maturity, not because I want to be superior to the toddlers or perhaps the kindergarteners, right? But because that's my job. I'm a teacher and I should model maturity for them. It's not about me being better than them. That's ridiculous. So just so here, I might myself be that kindergartner inside, but pretend to be the teacher for now. And then perhaps in time, I will actually be like that or closer to it. Thank you for listening.